Good morning, Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo, the rest of the world. You've tuned into the Mac City Morning Show. I am your host, Elliot Pierre, and we're going to start this episode off the same way we start every episode off, with a moment of gratitude. I know you could be doing a million other things with your time, and the fact that you spend it with us truly does mean the world to me, so thank you. On that note, Tanner, hit him with the intro. And we are back. As you can tell, we are not on the set of the Mac City Morning Show. We are at McMurray Regional Law Office. And as you also know, I don't introduce my guests because they can do a better job at that than myself. So can you please reintroduce yourself to the people at home?
My name is Christine Burton, and I'm one of the lawyers at McMurray Regional Law Office.
There we go. So we had such a good conversation last time. Your life experiences have been just amazing. So you've been all around the world. So what I want to talk to you about is, in the places that you've traveled, that you've worked, this is my first question, that you've worked, which was your favorite place to actually visit? Obviously, Fort McMurray is your favorite because you've been here the longest, but out of the other places, where did you enjoy the most?
Wow, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because I actually grew up in Australia.
I know.
That's an amazing place.
Yeah.
And worked in Cambodia and South Africa. Mm-hmm. Each had such amazing parts to them.
Yeah.
Like South Africa has amazing geography. Mm-hmm. It's very much like Canada. It's got all sorts of different kinds of geography.
Yeah.
The people were amazing.
Yeah.
And the same in Cambodia. It's such a different culture.
Right.
It was essentially a Buddhist culture, which is so interesting.
Right.
And the people were really amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why I like doing this work, because we get to meet people from all over the world, right?
Well, let's stick on that topic a little bit. What does that mean? Because I've never been to Cambodia or a Buddhist country. So what is the dynamic? Like, what are the differences that you see when you're there?
Well, Cambodia, of course, has a very troubled history.
Mm-hmm.
They were just coming out of a decades-long civil war at the time.
Right.
So there was a lot of trauma, a lot of damage, and a lot of hope.
Okay.
And when the UN went in with the program I was working in,
mm-hmm.
they were setting up the first democratic elections. They were disarming all the factions, and they were essentially training the government to be a government, basically.
Right.
So there was an awful lot of work going on, and the hope that engendered in people who had lived with decades and decades of war and deprivation and suffering was amazing.
Yeah.
So that was... It was an incredible experience that way.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up here in Canada, and in Fort McMurray, so there's a bunch of different religions. And I have no doubt that it impacts like how we interact and act as Canadians. But to go to a country that's predominantly like one set religion has to affect the way people interact and like just navigate society, right?
Yeah. Well, and Buddhist culture it's a faith, but it's also a way of living.
Right.
There, they very much live their faith. It's a day-to-day thing.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to be able to visit a lot of the Buddhist temples there and meet with the Buddhist monks. They're very much embedded in the communities. Mm-hmm. Had the opportunity to bring some building supplies so they could start to rebuild some of those temples.
Right.
Because most of them had been damaged to some extent in the Civil War.
Right.
And it is incredibly peaceful religion, and I think that's why that was the shock and the anomaly of the Civil War. It was so incredibly violent, for Buddhist culture that's essentially very peaceful.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
And of course, interlaced in there is factors of power, politics,
of course,
economics, money, who controls certain trades and stuff. So it was a very complex place.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I can't wrap my mind around. I was just sitting with a guest a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the Middle East. Yes, and it was very apparent to me like that I don't know anything is what it comes down to. I'm not educated on the subject matter. So he was explaining certain things to me, and to my brain, it just doesn't make any sense in regards to like I can't understand war and violence, just because I've been blessed, thank goodness, to live in a country and during a time where I haven't seen or had to go through it. And I was chatting with my parents about it, and they had to go through a bit of a civil uprising in Guyana, and that's kind of why they left. And like I was trying to get into the mindset of that, and like you've just mentioned, like you have like who controls this, money, power, like there's a whole bunch of dynamics that, like, thankfully for me, like I've never had to like really had to deal with, but it's such a unfortunate concept that you see it and you see the damage that ripples for generations afterwards.
It does. And it impacts every part of our lives. But living here in Fort McMurray, we get to meet just about people from all of those countries.
That's right.
I remember when the waves of refugees from Somalia came in, and we got to learn about what they went through, and you know, in the Congo, and lots of refugees from Central and South America.
That's right.
Because of the civil unrest there. So which is why, you know, I got into doing some volunteering with immigrants here.
That's right. Yeah.
Because we needed them as workers, and they needed a safe place to live.
That's exactly it.
And we got to know a lot of them. We still run a free notary clinic once a month for immigrants. And of course now we're meeting a lot of the Ukrainian refugees.
Yeah, they're coming in, which is fantastic to see. Now, you are born and raised in Australia. I know we talked about this last time, but I forget where in Australia. Was it Perth?
Perth, yeah.
There we go. My mind's not going yet.
Yeah.
So Perth is not, from my knowledge, close to water.
Yes, it is actually.
It is, but not like the ocean, or is it a lake?
It's in Western Australia, so it's on the ocean.
Okay. So explain this to me then. So what's the difference between, because I think everybody has heard about Sydney. Yeah. And that gets like the big shine.
That's on the East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what are some differences between Perth and Sydney?
Gosh, what a question.
Yeah, because there's got to be lots.
I actually emigrated from Australia to Canada when I was just a young teenager.
Oh, okay.
So I've been back to visit.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've still got family there.
Yeah.
But Perth is very much resource-based.
In regards to what? What resource are we talking about here?
A little bit like Fort McMurray in a way.
Okay.
In that, a lot of mining, a lot of oil, a lot of resource-based industry. And it's sort of a hub like Edmonton is for Fort McMurray.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, my parents just went. I've never had the opportunity to go over to Australia yet. They said they just loved it. And they did go to Sydney and to Perth. Those were the two that they went to, and they said they were both lovely. However, there was a different vibe in the two, and I was like, oh, that's I love to travel, and when I get an opportunity to talk to somebody like you who's literally traveled to some very unique places that most people don't get to go to, it's just like, what was that like? Well, because culture to me is so dynamic and so different, but we're all human beings, so it's fascinating.
Yeah. And then, of course, I met my husband in Cambodia, who's from Colombia.
That's right.
So
that's exactly
spent a lot of time traveling through Colombia as well.
Yeah. Now he's in Calgary currently, back and forth.
Yeah.
He's crushing it in Calgary.
Yeah.
What a dude. So he was extreme. Like, I have known him for quite some time.
Yeah. Julio.
Through his different careers. Just we keep bumping into each other randomly, from Keanu College to the municipality to real estate. And so then when he came on the show and he was telling me like, I'm thinking about going to Calgary. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know why you do that. Your success here is so high. Yeah. And he has his reasons, right?
Yeah.
And anyways, I follow him on LinkedIn and I follow him on Facebook, and I just see him crushing it down there as well.
Yeah. It's funny, he brings that sort of old world charm to his business.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like our business. You know, we just love meeting the people.
That's right.
And he loves meeting the people.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, so.
And he was just up a little while ago. He was doing a walk, and he was bumping.
A walk for our son.
That's right. And he was. My mom went with him, and he was saying, Pam, do you know people in Calgary? And she was like, yeah. And then he dropped some names, and then my mom's like, oh yeah, I know them quite well. He's like, man, you got to be careful. Like, the world, although big,
It's really small.
It's really small.
Yeah. Well, of course, how many people have lived and worked in Fort McMurray and moved to Calgary?
That's exactly
right?
it.
And of course, our daughter's in Calgary, so
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons he's there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, listen, I already know that we've went over the allotted time for today, and we could do that every episode. But before I cut you loose, you get a shameless shout out or plug. So you have the mic, the camera, the lights. Have fun.
Oh my goodness! Wow. One of the things I'm involved with right now is the Wood Buffalo Wellness Society, which is it's an Indigenous-led organization that works on both homelessness and addictions treatment for some of our Indigenous communities. And we have an exciting new project coming up called Tawau, which is Cree for Everybody's Welcome, which is going to be a supportive housing cultural center for local Indigenous people. So it's a project just getting off the ground now. I'm just so excited about it.
So, I can't wait to hear more about that next time we sit down and chat.
Yeah.
Great. Well, everybody at home, thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Mac City Morning Show. Really do appreciate it. Hopefully you're having a great weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
What a deadly old way to end another morning show. Later, boys.
It's so ballistic!
Talk about quenching your ugly thirst.